Imagine if Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Phil, and a mind reader had a baby. It would be the top 1% closer. Look, today we're about to unlock one of the most underrated superpowers in sales: piercing questions. I created this term about 5 years ago, and it's really picked up a lot of speed around sales because of its powerful delivery. Look, these bad boys are going to turn you into that version of yourself that you have been wanting for a long, long time. So forget about those pushy, slimy tactics. We're making sales feel like a deep, meaningful late night conversation over whiskey, where people just happen to give you their credit card at the end. All right, so let's dive in. Now, I want you to really lean into this. Okay, we're not here to talk about scripts and gimmicks and all those weird closing lines that make you sound like a robotic used car salesman. We're talking about real conversations that pull people in, make them feel heard, and guide them to a solution without you needing to be all buy my thing, buy my thing. Look, you'll never have to sell again if you master this, okay? Now, have you ever had a conversation where someone says something extremely vague and your brain just kind of fills in all the blanks? Yeah, stop doing that. That's what average salespeople do, and we're not average. You're not average. A piercing question is like a verbal metal detector. It finds all the hidden treasures buried beneath all the fluff that people give you. I want you to think of it like peeling an onion, but instead of making people cry, hopefully, we're making them realize their own problems and getting them to solve those with you. So piercing questions go way beyond the surface. They bring out a deeper logical and deeper emotional answers from the clients. Piercing questions also help prospects gain clarity and cause self-persuasion. Massive. Piercing questions also identify whether they seek pain relieved or maybe it's a gain received they're looking for. And then piercing questions reveal the real hidden problem. Look, most salespeople think they know their problem. Spoiler alert, they don't. They know the symptom. I need more leads. I need a better strategy. I feel stuck. But those aren't the real issues. The real issue is buried 3 layers deep under that initial statement. And our job is to uncover it like a magician revealing a hidden trick. There are many times that people don't buy from you because they don't feel you fully understand them and their situation. So how can they trust you to build the right bridge without that feeling of comfort in you? And look, this is why most salespeople suck at this. They assume that they know exactly what the prospect needs, exactly what the prospect means. They move to a solution way too quick. They're also missing all the hidden emotions and all the hidden triggers throughout the conversation. And then lastly, they're listening through their own experiences. So assumptions. Assumptions is the silent deal killer. The number of salespeople who hear, I need more leads, just as an example, and then immediately launch into a lead generation pitch is staggering. But what if that's not their actual problem, right? Maybe they have leads, but they suck at closing. Maybe their leads ghost them harder than an ex who still owes them money. Look, if you assume, you're basically playing darts blindfolded, hoping you hit something. Spoiler, most of the time you don't. But here's the deal. When you assume, you're making the conversation about you and your experiences instead of actually listening to them. And people don't want to be sold. They want to be understood. So if you rush in with solutions before fully understanding their situation, you're shooting yourself in the foot. If you assume, you miss out. If you dig, you sell. A lot of salespeople, they interpret what that lead is saying based on their own experiences or even past calls that they've been on. They think like, oh, I've heard this before, or oh, I've been through that before, so I know exactly what they mean. When in actuality, you don't, because there's an entire story behind something they said. And that story has spots that haven't been uncovered yet. And that, my friends, is why they are still stuck in the same situation. It's the story that hasn't been uncovered or realized yet emotionally. Listen, logic doesn't close deals, emotions do. People make buying decisions based on feelings, they justify those with logic later. You ever see someone buy like this expensive gadget and say like, oh yeah, it's for work, when you know damn well they just wanted it? Same thing here. Piercing questions bring those emotions to the surface so the prospect can see their own reality. And once they do, buying becomes a no-brainer. So piercing questions help you get clarity on vague statements. Massive. They bring out all the emotions that drive the decisions for them. And then most importantly, they prevent you from assuming and misdiagnosing. Your role isn't just to clarify for yourself, it's to help them get clarity. The second someone realizes they're in a hole, what do? They start looking for a way out. They start looking for a ladder. And guess what? You just happen to have a ladder. But if they never realize that they're in a hole to begin with, you're going to be pushing a ladder on someone who doesn't think they even need it. That's what most salespeople do. When you ask the right questions, you find out if they need a ladder or maybe a rope. Basically, you're seeking to understand before being understood. Let's take a look at some examples of level 1 piercing questions just to understand people a little bit better, okay? You have, these are level 1 piercing questions. What do you mean by that? Can you tell me more? Why is that important to you? What happens if nothing changes? How does that make you feel? So these level 1 piercing questions are pure magic. While they seem very generic, they take that casual, yeah, I need help, and turn it into a holy crap, I really do need help. But the trick, you gotta keep your tone right. Keep your tone curious, not interrogative. Think chatty like a chatty bartender, not an FBI agent. So when you ask, like, what happens if nothing changes? You're making them stare down the dark, scary road of staying stuck. And people hate staying stuck. So the right questions at the exact right time with the exact right tonality can completely shift a conversation. You actually see it happen in real time. The moment when their guard drops down, their eyes widen, and they go, oh, damn. That's when you know that you've hit gold, especially once you start diving into piercing questions level 2. So the fact of the matter is humans are weird, okay? We say things that we don't fully mean. And sometimes the truth is, it's hidden between the lines. And these are hidden emotional statements that I call them. So someone says things are okay. Like, what does that mean? Someone says, I'm just tired of blank. What's exhausting them? Someone says, if I could just blank, like, what's the real obstacle here, right? Like, I'm tired of this could mean I'm burned out. I hate my life. Or I need someone to tell me what to do so I don't have to think anymore. Your job is to find out which one. And I want you to think of these statements like emotional breadcrumbs. You just have to follow the trail. When someone throws out a phrase like, I'm just frustrated, your response should be ding, 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 the jackpot. That's where you dig. That's where the real conversation begins. But instead of it beginning there, let's be real, like most salespeople suck at listening. They're either plotting their next line or waiting for their turn to talk. Look, 45% of the time, people are thinking about what to say next in the conversation. Another 45% of the time, they're waiting for a gap to say what they just thought of, which leaves 10% of the time they're actively listening. You know what great salespeople do? They shut up and listen. I know, crazy. When you do this, you start hearing the real problems, though, not just that surface level fluff. And that's where all the real deals are closed. The best closers don't have the best pitches. They just ask the best questions at the best times, and they listen better than anyone else. That's what makes them absolutely lethal. And when you're actually listening, like really listening, you realize that every word, every phrase, every casual joke that your prospect drops has an underlying meaning. One of the most powerful principles in piercing questions is nothing is accidental. Every word, every phrase, every casual joke has an underlying meaning. If you get really good at spotting these, you'll start seeing these patterns that tell you exactly where to go next in the conversation. People actually reveal more than they realize. A simple, yeah, things are fine, can mean everything's on fire and I'm barely holding it together. But most salespeople don't catch those. They don't catch those cues because they're too focused on their next question. So we need to sharpen your ability to hear what's really being said so you can lead deeper. You can have more meaningful conversations, the kind that makes closing deals effortless because your prospect finally feels like someone truly understands them. Just as an example, let's look at some phrases here. So we have stuff like firing my assistant soon. Things are going okay. Could be better. I love XYZ. It just depends. Maybe I should just quit. I'm tired of blank. It's draining me. Oh my God, this is so fun. If I could just insert whatever, and like literally thousands more. Let's break some of these down. When someone says things are okay, what does that really mean? Probably that things aren't okay. When someone jokingly says, maybe I should just quit, they're testing the waters to see how it sounds out loud. People don't say things for no reason. Your job is to latch onto those little breadcrumbs and get them to open up. That's where the gold is. And if you're still thinking about what to say next while your prospect is talking, congrats, you've already lost them. This is what I call the listening gap. Everyone talks about listening, but few actually understand like what that even means. 90% of salespeople listen just enough to respond. And only 10% of salespeople listen for something I call trigger statements. The best closers don't have the best scripts, they have the best ears. Listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about catching why those words were said. So every time someone gives you a vague answer, your brain should light up like a Christmas tree. That's your cue to dig deeper. Let's look at some examples of vague statements that I call trigger statements, okay? Just to read a few. It's really stressing me out, makes me really confused. We have, I'm excited, it feels really good, I don't know what to do, I'm always curious, and so on. And these are just some of thousands, right? But these statements are emotional red flags. If someone says, I'm just frustrated with, you don't just nod and move on. You lean in. What are they frustrated with? Why? What's that frustration costing them? What happens if it continues? You want to walk them down their own realizational pathway so that they arrive at the truth, not because you forced them, but because they saw it for themselves based on your piercing questions. I have seen so many people force questions on sales calls where it feels like an interrogation. The goal of piercing questions is to make it conversational. Look, if you were out with a friend and they asked something or they told you something and you knew there was some sort of emotion behind it, you would make your question sound very conversational and concerned, right? So why are we treating sales calls any different? Like, we need to stop our corporate voice and start our natural conversational tone, especially with piercing questions and the other stuff I teach on sales calls. So the point is, you don't need to dominate the conversation, okay? You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to be the most curious. So having that 5-year-old mentality, keep asking why. Drop the need to be the expert, just be curious. The best salespeople guide, they don't push. If you've ever talked to a 5-year-old, they ask why a million times until you break down and start questioning life itself. That's the energy we want, relentless curiosity. Keep asking why, keep asking what, keep asking how until the prospect uncovers their own truth. Look, we started this journey talking about how piercing questions can transform your sales conversation. This isn't just a skill, it's a superpower. The ability to ask the right questions at the exact right time with the exact right tonality doesn't just make you better at sales, it makes you better at everything. Negotiations, relationships, leadership, heck, even getting your kid to tell you the truth about what really happened at school today. Think back to that first thing we talked about, that first slide when I said you'll never have to sell again if you master this. That wasn't just hype. It is the absolute truth. When you understand how to uncover hidden motivations, guide people towards their own realizations, and then help them see the value in what they truly need, sales stops feeling like sales. It feels like solving a puzzle with someone instead of against them. I want you to ask yourself, are you going to keep selling the old way, pushing, convincing, and hoping? Or are you going to step into the next level where people trust you, they open up to you, and they sell themselves on working with you? That choice is yours, but if you choose the latter, I promise you, you'll never look back. In the description of this video, you're going to find a free resource around piercing questions. I want you to check it out and just go be different.